Hey guys, Tommy here. Want to give you a little talk today on nutrition for sport and exercise. So eating surrounding your workouts and any sort of athletic event. And the best place to start would be carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are going to be your main fuel source during most activities. So most activity that is somewhat intense and moderate duration to longer duration. So things like low intensity walking, yes, that is mostly going to utilize fat as a fuel source. So you'll hear a lot of times people talk about like the fat burning zone, and that refers to, I want to burn mostly fat to get rid of this body fat, so why don't I work out in the fat burning zone? Well, the problem with that is you're not burning very many calories. So yes, you can burn mostly fat proportionately as a percentage, but you're going to have to walk for 5 hours to burn the same amount of calories. So your hour-long workouts or the more intense workouts are definitely the way to go. You're going to be burning more fat and carbohydrates, but proportionately you are burning more carbohydrates during that intense event. So again, it is your main fuel source for those intense workouts, games, 5Ks, that sort of thing. So if we talk about carbohydrate over the course of a day, for athletes at least, it's recommended that you get 3 to 12 grams per kilogram. So that's going to be adjusted to your training level, whether you are highly active, and based on body weight. So if you were to do out the math and figure out your body weight in kilograms rather than pounds and multiply that by 3, that might give you a ballpark figure, and you could correlate that to what your macronutrient ratios are as well. And keep in mind that this is for athletes. So if you are a weight loss individual, you may fall, towards the lower end of this category. So again, talking about the percentage, one of the downside of percentage-based recommendations is that they assume adequate total calorie intake. So if, for example, you're supposed to be eating 35% protein and you meet those needs, but you only had 1,000 calories during the day, well, you didn't really meet your protein needs because total protein was not enough. You ate enough relative, you met your ratio goals, but only eating 1,000 calories a day is not enough whatsoever. So throughout this PowerPoint here, I want to give you a few grams per body weight recommendations just so you have another sort of reference as far as recommendations go. Percentage-based recommendations, as I said, they assume that you're having adequate total calories. So if you should be eating 2,000 calories a day and you eat 2,000 calories a day, then the ratio method may work well for you. But if you're somebody who undereats, then you may not be getting adequate intake of these macronutrients. So talking about energy expenditure and where it's coming from, just a quick overview here on what I was saying when I say we burn mostly carbohydrate or glycogen as it's called. So an event that is 1 to 4 seconds, so if you did one jump, is going to use something called ATP or creatine phosphate. So if you ever hear about people taking a creatine supplement, that's for events that are really short, so less than 10 seconds. So football players, sprinters, weightlifting, it's going to help, max effort events. So a couple of repetitions on an exercise, maybe under this 10-second mark. Creatine supplementation may help that individual. When you get upwards minute, 2 minutes, you're in this anaerobic system, which the energy system you're using is kind of a combination of things. And then we're getting up into glycogen here, for anything over 340 seconds, so a couple minutes or greater, we're using mostly fatty acids and muscle glycogen. So notice that at any given moment there's a couple of different energy systems at play. So when you get up into those higher time frames of exercise, we're using mostly muscle glycogen, and if you're getting into a really long time frame, so long distance running, walking, you're going to be using stored body fat predominantly. But like I said, those 1 hour workouts, you're using mostly this stored carbohydrate. And that's shown visually here. So you'll see here at the bottom they overlap a lot. So they're always kind of have an interplay, but most of our workouts happen right here in the middle. 3 to 4 hours, long distance events, you start using mostly fat. Which just brings us to our next slide. When you're eating for your workout, fat doesn't really come into play too much, so you definitely want to eat fat. It's good for metabolic processes, synthesis of hormones, so whether it's human growth hormone, it has a lot of mechanical functions to your body, and it provides a lot of energy, and again, for those slow or longer duration things. So things like walking, that's your main fuel source for those slower, long duration events. So it's definitely a needed macronutrient, and we can't survive without it. But as far as workout nutrition, it kind of takes a back seat. So you don't want to have a lot of fat right before or right after your workout. It's not providing you a fuel source, dietary fat that is. So anything you eat before your workout is not going, any fat you eat before your workout is not going to immediately help you during that workout. So bodily stored fat gets moved into circulation when it's used during an athletic event. If you have a fat-rich meal before you work out, that takes a very long time to be metabolized. Fat is very slow moving through your GI tract, and it's not going to be absorbed and then utilized in that event. Body fat gets turned into triglycerides and is then used. So before an athletic event, before a workout, I would skip the fat completely. I would not eat a fat-rich meal before you work out. There is some evidence that it does play a role in recovery. So if you have a mixed meal after your workout that contains some fat, that's all right. But again, post-workout, the emphasis is still going to be on protein and carbohydrates. So like I said, fat kind of takes a back seat right before and right after your workout. And talking about fat as an energy source here, glycogen, which is carbohydrates in your body, is stored in your muscle and your liver. And if we tally up how much energy we get from that, it's only about 6,000 calories. I'm sorry, 2,300 calories. So not a lot of energy, whereas body fat contains 3,500 per pound, and most of us have multiple pounds of body weight as fat. So if we give you an example here, for a 160-pound person, if they have 20% body fat, they have 126,000 calories as fat. So you're never going to run out of fat as a fuel source when you work out. You have virtually unlimited energy from fat. So if you were running a marathon, you're never going to run out of energy from fat. It's always going to come from this carbohydrate first. If somebody's bonking and they hit the wall, so to speak, and they're low on energy, they're cramping up, they can't go on any further, it's because they ran out of that glycogen. You're never going to run out of body fat. Some people may say unfortunately, but it's a very good mechanism that our body has. We'll never have body fat while we're exercising. Moving on to protein. protein is going to have a huge role in recovery. So again, we don't use protein as a fuel source very much. It's more for rebuilding. So post-workout, it plays a huge role in protein synthesis to repair our muscles. So there's 11 essential and 9 non-essential amino acids, and amino acids are like the building blocks of protein. They're kind of what protein is. So a meal that's called a complete protein is something that has all 11 of those essential amino acids. And an incomplete protein is something that does not have all 11 essential. So when we talk about examples, animal proteins are complete proteins. They have all 11 essential amino acids. If you are eating a vegan or a vegetarian diet, you're going to have to make a complete protein by mixing meals. So if you mix beans with rice, for example, neither of those is a complete protein, but when you mix them, it does become a complete protein. So when it comes to post-workout nutrition, you want to make sure that you have a complete protein. A great example that we always recommend is a whey protein or any kind of dairy product. Dairy has a good lactose sugar and contains complete all 11 essential amino acids and is very easily absorbed. So whey protein tends to be a very good post-workout protein to eat. So anyone that's a weight loss individual and they're in that calorie deficit should eat at least 1.6 grams per kilogram per day. So another example, 180-pound individual should be eating about 130 grams of protein per day. So if you're going off that ratio or percentage-based recommendations, make sure that you do a little quick check there. And if the ratio of protein they're eating is 30%, for example, and you fall below that 1.6 grams per kilogram, then you may need to up your protein, and you may be in 32 or 35% protein. So just a little check that you can do on yourself there. So just a little recap on timing. Pre-workout nutrition, about 1 hour prior, you want to have a meal higher in carbs with some protein. The protein is going to start to get metabolized and be there for that repair after your workout. So we want to have it lower in fat, lower in fiber. Fat and fiber are very slow digesting, and they're going to stay in your stomach. They're not being utilized as a fuel source, so you don't really need them in that moment in time. They're great for your anytime meals, you know, breakfast, dinner. If you're working out midday, have those fats and fibers, breakfast and dinner. And if you're having a midday workout, focus on carbohydrates and protein. Intra-workout, you don't really need that much glucose or protein or food in general unless you're running longer durations. And if you are running longer durations, examples, common ones are liquid. You could have Gatorade. There's semi-liquid, which is kind of like the goo or gels, or you could have a solid food. Common one is a banana while you're running. If you are going to choose an intra-workout food or drink, try to choose something that has either glucose or sucrose as the sugar. So those are good quality sugars. So look on the label. Make sure that it's mostly glucose or sucrose. Try not to choose anything that has high fructose corn syrup. You probably shouldn't be having any of that in general, but especially during an athletic event, it's not going to stimulate that glycogen resynthesis. So it's not going to really help you and give you the energy that you need. And it can cause some gastrointestinal upset. And the last thing you want to do when you're running a race is have to run and find a bathroom because your stomach is upset from what you ate. Post-workout, this is where all the magic happens. This is where you recover, build muscle, and building muscle in turn burns more fat. So this is where you get stronger, feel better, feel more athletic. You want to eat within a 20 to 30 minute window, so that anabolic window. That is going to resynthesize muscle and restore your glycogen stores, so when you go to work out again, you have the energy to work out again. And I think muscle building and recovery, everybody gives protein, you know, the big rap, but carbohydrate plays a big role in recovery as well. So to get lean, to get strong, you need both protein and carbohydrates after you work out. And the amounts are about a 3-to-1 ratio of carbs to protein if you're looking for mostly muscle gain, if you did a heavy resistance training session, or if you're a weight loss person, because you don't need that much carbohydrate. Or if you're somebody who's that ectomorph, so you're naturally kind of lanky, skinny, or if you're really high training volume, you did like a 2-hour session, 2-hour cycle or run, then you burn more carbohydrates, you're going to need to replace more, and then it's going to end up being like a 4-to-1 ratio. But I think most of us are going to fall into this 3-to-1 ratio after we work out, and what that might equate to is about 60 grams of carbohydrate and about 20 grams of protein. The bigger the individual, the more that might be. It might be somewhere, larger male might be somewhere like 80 grams of carbohydrate and 30 grams of protein. Smaller females might be, you know, 50 and 15 grams of protein. But something around that 3-to-1 ratio.